It's like an hour outside of Austin, and I didn't really know anything about it. I mean, the lineup was really cool. Yeah, and you just pull up to this like ghost town, and that Willie Nelson owns, and he played at the end of the night, which was super, super fun.
Are you still in sort of the everything is kind of surreal stage of things?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if I'll ever...
You'll get jaded sooner or later.
Maybe about certain stuff, but I feel like there's always going to be stuff where I'm like, oh, whoa, this hasn't happened before. This is weird. I mean, which is cool. Totally.
Wait, Willie Nelson's ghost town is a pretty high bar for surreality.
Yeah. I mean, you're in an alternate universe, essentially. So, yeah, totally.
It seems like all this happened pretty quick for you.
I played around LA a lot. Yeah, and then suddenly it just kind of seems like I've been busier and busier, which is really, I'm so lucky. It's really cool. My
understanding is you got your tape into the hands of Ryan Adams, and that sort of set the wheels in motion.
I mean, I wouldn't say I got my tape in because we met through a mutual friend who wanted to introduce us for some reason. Like, he said that Ryan would like my music. Ryan had never listened to it before.
Yeah.
When I met him, I just like went to his studio to like hang out with a couple people.
You didn't have that much music in the world.
No, I didn't. And yeah, I don't think I definitely didn't have anything that I would have proudly shown him. We actually hung out for like a lot of hours. Like maybe it was like 5 hours of just like hanging out and talking and hanging out with a bunch of people and getting stupid snacks at 7-Eleven. And then and I was nervous because I was a fan, but he handed me a guitar and was like, play songs. And then when I was done, he was like, be here at 4 p.m.
That's a lot of preamble of you not actually playing any music.
Yeah, totally. He had no context for me. We kind of like hung out first, which was cool.
The difference between you just sort of getting there and then having to play music and you sort of ingratiating yourself in that situation and befriending him and having a nice afternoon, it's probably a little easier to just kind of ease into the music.
Totally. Although I think he gets off a little bit on like making people feel like important, which is so nerve-wracking. Like he handed me the guitar like a beacon. He's like, all right. Like we were joking around and then he was like, all right. And like didn't say anything. He just handed me a guitar, and I my hands were definitely shaking. So
it was like, this is going to be your tryout,
right? Exactly. Like it was all hanging out, totally chill, and then it was like this silent, serious moment, which I feel like he kind of knew.
Did you go into that situation with any expectation that would lead to something else?
No. Everybody was like, Ryan's a weirdo. Like he's probably gonna like you though. That was my only vibe with the whole hangout before I hung out with him, was like, who knows what's going to happen.
Where were you at musically at that point? I mean, you had a demo out?
Not really. I was looking for a place to record my full-length album, and I had actually just met the guy who would end up producing my album. I met a lot of people around that time that I would end up surrounding myself by. Yeah. I met Tony Berg at the same time, and he produced my album with Ethan Gruska.
How serious were you at the time? I mean, were you able to make music your full-time job already?
No, it was definitely my goal, but I was not.
I mean, to be fair, like I know a lot of people who and very good people who've been doing this for a really long time who are still unable to do it.
Sure, yeah.
So, at that point, what were you actually doing? Were you going to school at the time?
No, I had decided not to go to college, graduated high school, was playing around LA, but I actually was in commercials as like kind of my day job, which was
acting
rad. Yeah. Which was rad because I worked, 5 days a year?
Yeah.
It was the most LA thing to do.
Oh, these are like
ever.
national spots.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you do a couple of those and you're good for the year pretty much.
Right. I mean, it was really, I was so lucky to be able to do that. Yeah. I basically got to treat music like my day job because of that, and super privileged, but I'm glad, I'm lucky. Yeah.
Was acting a serious pursuit for you?
No. I wouldn't even really call it acting. Like no. I don't even know if there's a commercial where I really say anything. There's stuff where I sing or whatever, but it's like, it's just kind of, I usually got cast for, we want someone real or whatever. So it was like kind of supposed to be like myself. So it wasn't, I wouldn't even really consider myself an actress at all.
You grew up in LA.
Yeah.
But your parents didn't push you into being in commercials?
No. It was like total happenstance that I was in my first commercial like something fell through and someone had heard of me because I was playing in this really crazy band called Sloppy Jane, who actually live in New York now. But it's like basically performance art.
Yeah.
And I played bass and like they thought I looked cool or something. And
so they're like, hey, there's a bass player in a performance art band. Let's get them to be in this national spot.
Uh-huh.
So somebody just called you up, or there was a scout, or how does that happen?
It was just like, I think he maybe messaged my like music Facebook page, and I think he had met my mom before, so she knew he was legit. It wasn't like a weird thing. Yeah, totally.
Is your mom in the business?
No, not at all.
Okay, they just cross paths at some
point?
Yeah,
LA is weird like that.
So you opt not to go to college because you want to do music full time?
Yeah.
And the parents were cool with that decision?
Yeah, my mom was like encouraging me to apply to one place. She was like, just apply to a place.
Yeah.
I'm like, see. And so I applied to Berklee School of Music, and it was really cool, but basically I had just finished 4 years of an arts high school. Mm-hmm. And most of the people I know who really thrived at Berklee were working on an instrument or engineering or something.
Or like classically trained.
Right. And I didn't really see the point of going for like songwriting when all the songwriters I know are like, you know, at doing it.
Yeah.
You know, no matter how successfully they're like playing around, and that's just what I felt like I wanted to do first. So
there is that sense, it's the same with writers, of having to kind of go out there and have some lived experience in order to find some subject matter to write about.
Yeah, totally.
You're coming off of being a teenager pretty recently, so is that where you're drawing most of your inspiration? Was
like
the high school experience?
It's definitely in there because this is my debut album.
Yeah.
So there's like a song that's like 5 years old. But no, I'd say probably more so like making it into like adult life. Like adult angst.
The transition into being a grown up, that's where you're drawing your inspiration?
Sure. Yeah. I would say yeah, I don't know if I've ever thought about it like that, but now that you say like teen angst, I think that there's just it's mostly like adult angst on my album. So
that is something that I hear a lot of people talk about too when it comes to, particularly when I don't even know if you're thinking this far ahead about, you know, the second album, because the first album isn't out yet and you're promoting it right now, but that is a sense that I get from a lot of people, is this idea of kind of having to go outside of that a little bit, you know, of the issue I think a lot of people run into is you get all of this time to put together the first record, you know, it's right. Drawn from a long period of time, and then you get maybe a year or two to put out the second one.
Yeah. So
you need to take that opportunity to go out and kind of find inspiration in the real world.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think the guy who produced my album, Tony, he really has been like reminding me every single time we talk that this is going to be my most like free time.
Yeah.
For a while, hopefully. So he was like, are you writing? Every time we talk. So I'm trying to think ahead of that, because a lot of debut albums can, are like stress so many people out.
Do you have that regimen yet? I mean, have you figured out how you best write?
I'm like, I used to have so much writing anxiety, which I'm really getting over. I tend to really like solitude, which I didn't really know about myself. And weirdly, touring has sort of helped me write, because the time that the downtime I have, I'm so much more grateful for than
precious,
when I'm just at home doing nothing. I write more weirdly now than I ever have, because I'm getting busy and it seems like it's like slipping away.
In spite of the fact that you're on tour and actively promoting this, you're able to find a certain number of hours during the day to actually sit down and write?
Yeah, I wouldn't say every day. It's really hard to stick to it every day, but I also have like an ongoing note on my phone that's just lyrics and stuff from my life.
Is it just sort of random pieces?
Yeah, super random pieces. So when I sit down to write, it's getting easier and easier, because I just have cumulative like words. And
it's like a game of Mad Libs almost.
Yeah,
You're
absolutely.
sort of connecting the dots.
Yeah, totally.
So songs are really being built around a certain phrase or something that you collect during the day?
Yeah, and even if it's not built around... I mean, actually, I kind of love throwing away lines that are the initial reason that I
Yeah.
started writing a song, because I'm going to sound so dumb even trying to remember what this is, but I know somewhere in history Bob Dylan said that
he's lived long enough.
Yeah,
he's probably said this at some point.
He said something like what you end up rhyming with can be more interesting than the thing that you wanted to rhyme. Does it make sense? Like the thing that made you need to rhyme something can be, you're like, oh, whoa, that's a way cooler line than even the first line.
It's the thing that sets the process in motion.
Totally. So I think that's a lot of what the notes are to me, is like they might not even make it in the final song. It's just something to get me started, which if I have nothing, it's impossible to start.
You said you had writing anxiety. Have you had any performance anxiety at the same time? Does that part of the process come naturally to you?
I have a lot less performance anxiety than writing anxiety, but there definitely are times where I get on stage and I'm like, why am I so nervous right now? And then yesterday I played a little session and I was like, why am I so nervous? And then I realized that I drank like half of the strongest cold brew I've ever had in my life. And I was like, that was a mistake.
So you were jittery?
I was super jittery.
Yeah.
And so if something tiny goes wrong like that, which it doesn't usually I'm fine. But I swear, if my pick breaks in half, which actually isn't a huge deal, but if I have to like make it through the set with like some minor inconvenience, I'm like suddenly aware of everything.
You think
like,
you might be a little OCD?
Yeah. Oh yeah, totally.
Are you superstitious at all? Is that part of it?
I don't think it's possible to be superstitious about shows, because I kind of feel the opposite. Sometimes everything goes wrong the day of a show. Like it was impossible to commute. You're so jet lagged you can't even keep your eyes open, and then weirdly getting on stage is the most calm part of your day. So I don't really see things that go wrong as like a bad omen, but if something goes wrong on stage, then you're like, oh God, what am I doing?
And you ramped up pretty quickly. What was a show like for you before you actually started recording? Were you doing like open mics, that sort of thing?
Yeah, I was doing open mics, and then I played at this little venue called Room 5 a lot, and it was above a restaurant in LA, and it was this weirdly like tight-knit group of songwriters that they were so sweet to me, but I was a total baby to them. A lot of them wrote for other artists or had big pop hits or had publishing deals as writers or whatever, and it was kind of a place where they would go and share songs, and I always liked to play there, and it was really small, and they made me feel really comfortable. But what I remember early on from playing shows is I didn't move or talk ever, and I feel like I'm finally relaxing enough to like enjoy myself on stage.
As you're playing in front of more people, you're starting to relax more?
Yeah, absolutely. I think really intimate shows are way more nerve-wracking than giant shows, because I don't know, the pressure is higher. Yeah. People are expecting this experience from you instead of just like a huge room full of people who are like trying to get a drink.
Are you playing with people? What is the setup like now?
I play solo a lot, and then sometimes I play with my best friend Harrison on guitar. But once the record comes out, I for sure will start playing with more people, like a full band.
I always get the feeling that would take some of the pressure off playing with other people on stage.
Totally. You can totally lean
otherwise,
on
every single thing is on you.
Right. It's true. That's definitely a big part of it, and it's the best part about having someone else on stage is you can like both revel in things that go wrong, or even if they mess up and you're supposed to be mad, you're like, oh, good, not me. It wasn't me. It's fine.
You did play in a band at one point. They're out here now, but you moved on to just sort of doing the singer-songwriter thing.
I mean, I played bass for them, and it was always kind of a thing where it was like I did it whenever I could, but then it started getting like I could never do it. So
that just sounded more like a fun project.
It was so fun.
Were they taking it seriously? Were you taking it seriously?
Yeah, they take it really seriously. Haley Dahl, the lead singer, is one of my best friends, and she writes all the music, and it's crazy. I recommend it. It's called Sloppy Jane. It's really, really weird and a treat.
But you needed to do your own thing.
Yeah, I mean, if I could do both, I totally would. Yeah. But she's taking it really seriously, and I'm taking my thing seriously. So
was it easier to start this new project off, the solo project, by just getting out there and doing it yourself? Was that just sort of the path of least resistance?
Yeah, totally. I played with a band in high school, that I pissed off this manager guy once who he wanted to work with me. I thought he was a creep. And then he went and he hired my entire band to back up another singer. And they dropped out of high school and went on tour, and they're all still my best friends. I absolutely do not hold it against them because they were kids and they wanted to get paid, but he was trying to mess with me. So then weirdly, kind of by default, I started playing solo all the time. Yeah.
I have the same conversation with stand-up comedians. I don't know how they take that first step out, especially with something as personal as songwriting. The difference between playing with the bands and the difference between playing with a sort of an art band and then just doing some really earnest songwriting and standing in front of a group of people. How do you take that first step?
I mean, my lyrics have always been really personal, so I think maybe the first step was easy because I was playing with a band, or I wanted to play with a band, but also all the music I listened to was really personal, and I, again, with the open mics, that really helped. It helped me get comfortable, and then I started playing with a band, and then when they all left, I was already doing my thing, and I didn't really think twice about it.
At what point in the process, in the past 5 years that you've been writing these songs, do you feel like you really hit upon what defined you?
Like, I don't know if I have. Yeah, exactly. I have thought that I've done that before, and then I'm always proven wrong. Like, there's always a moment where I'm like, oh, wait, that's the song I was supposed to write, or whatever.
So being proven wrong is just getting a little bit closer to...
Totally. Like I said, with the writing anxiety, I never thought I'd get over it, and weirdly, I just did. Like, I thought that I was always going to have that. I hated writing with people. Now I can write with my friends. Yeah, it's been cool, like, changing. It's been cool.
But from a content perspective or a quality perspective, what's the difference between a song you wrote 5 years ago and the songs you're writing now?
Probably what you said earlier, like the teen angst versus like just more general life stuff. The oldest one on the record is a song called Chelsea, which I wrote basically because I was mad that a bunch of people in my high school were romanticizing Sid and Nancy. I just thought it was so dumb. I was like, why them? And then there's like one about...
He was a terrible bass player.
Dude, not even... He's like, doesn't even count. He like wasn't even plugged in half the time. It doesn't make any sense. And then, like first heartbreak, that kind of stuff. Like just that kind of stuff. And then kind of came into myself and started writing more general life stuff for sure.
So you feel like it's thus far been kind of present tense, that you're really writing about things pretty soon after they happen to you?
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
It's interesting though, that time period, that's the time period that's people just mine for years. I mean, if you look at like Springsteen, totally. I actually think of the Hold Steady a lot when I think of this, because they're all, they've all got to be like well into their 40s, and that is still the time period for them.
Right.
There's something but the music that you write about it is obviously going to be really different if you go back to it.
Right.
Versus being in the moment.
Yeah. I think there's definitely stuff where I've been like, oh, wow, I've never wrote about that. It seems weird that I wouldn't have.
Yeah.
So
such as?
I had a house fire in my like childhood home.
Yeah.
Which was basically, nobody was hurt, but it was, I mean, actually my mom did get hurt, but nobody was like, it wasn't from the fire. She like ran and like dislocated her knee. It was really traumatizing for everybody, but basically it was super weird and surreal, and I was like, that's never made it into a song once. Not even like a throwaway weird line. Like I don't need a whole song about it, but it seems weird that it's such a
Is that
thing.
The process of you sort of sitting down and figuring out what you're gonna write about that day, or is that just kind of basic remembering your life and it occurring to you that it's never made it into your work?
I think everybody who knows about it is like, why is that in any song? I'm like, no. So I think that's what made me think about it. Like songwriter friends saying, it's weird that you've never written about that, or people tried to make me do it before, and I just never naturally did. So
you don't feel like you're like actively like mining your past to...
No, I think every time I sit down to write, I have so much to write about.
Yeah.
That I just don't really think about the subject matter even.
So, serial killers.
Yes.
Was that an instance of you just trying to kind of get out of your life for a second?
No, I was, it felt like it totally took over my brain in the same way that the Sid and Nancy thing did. It was so confusing to me that Sid and Nancy are this romanticized thing. And then the serial killer thing, I guess just nobody had ever briefed me on like the history of American serial killers. And now it just like as an adult,
I teach in class.
No, it's not, but it's common knowledge.
Yeah.
Everybody knows about everybody. So I somehow stumbled upon something probably on the internet and ended up in a YouTube Wikipedia wormhole for days, and I was convinced there was something wrong with me and convinced like that I needed to be on some sort of like medication.
I, like most people, have had that experience
right.
and read the books, and I've probably read everything written about Charles Manson, and you
totally.
feel like am I identifying a little too closely with this character?
But see, that was my comfort.
Yeah.
I think I realized, wait, there's a huge money-making industry profiting on the fact that people are obsessed with this. Why are there endless interviews with Dahmer on the internet that all have like so many views, and they're so again romanticized? Like he's like in the mind of one of the terrors of our time, and you're like, this is like a real person who actually killed people. And
but even beyond that, I had a guy on the show named Durf, who's a cartoonist who went to school.
Oh, is he the my best friend or my
friend Dahmer guy?
Dahmer, yeah.
And it's any instance where you can shed some, not only just shed different light on it, but like actually kind of humanize.
Yeah.
That's the thing that people relate to, and I think that's the thing that freaks people out, is how...
That's what freaked me out about him specifically, because...
he's a human being?
Because he's a human being, and you watched like the John Wayne Gacy interviews, and he's so obviously insane and isn't making any coherent sense.
He's a clown, too.
Even Bundy
really...
is like trying to be manipulative and isn't even really. He just sounds like an idiot. And then Dahmer is like, I don't know, I just feel really just heartbroken about, what I've done, and I think I don't know, it seems obvious that he's trying to figure out what happened in his own brain, and that was scary to me. I was like, can you imagine not having, or can you imagine those impulses? And the truth is no, but up late in Wikipedia and not realizing that the whole universe is obsessed with serial killers was very troublesome to me as a late teen.
And how does that actually become a song?
Again, with it's stuff that I've become obsessed with. I couldn't stop thinking about it, so I started kind of accidentally writing about it. I didn't sit down to write it. I think I just was thinking about it every second.
Yeah.
So
in a way, it's a nice exercise of trying to get out of your head a little bit, right? Of finding a different hook outside of you to tell that story.
Right. Totally. I think it's all through my lens, so it still feels really personal, but
well, that's unavoidable, right?
Right, totally. But it is super weird to feel so connected to something that basically has nothing to do with you.
From that first recording session with Ryan Adams to where you are now, to actually having this album soon to be out in the world, what steps are we missing in that process?
I went on tour a little bit after the Ryan 7-inch, and that started happening more and more, and I built a little community of musicians around myself and made this record very slowly, which I think was really good for me. I met the producer, like I said, I met the producer at the same time I met Ryan, and that was in November of 2014. Mm-hmm. And I knew I wanted to work with him, but I didn't have all the songs that I wanted, and it was a very slow process. We were basically experimenting with each other. Like, he was changing chords and showing me different weird voicings, and like making me watch endless Beatles YouTube videos.
It was like production boot camp.
Yeah, it was production boot camp,
Yeah.
absolutely. And then in 2016, that's really when I started to, like, more touring, more recording, and then basically finished the record, and now it's now. And it's just been more and more of the same, which is really cool. But yeah, it's just the Ryan thing, it definitely felt like stuff kicked off and started happening, but it's just been getting more and more frequent, which is rad.
Was it useful going back and watching those like tutorials? Was that actually a helpful part of the process?
Tutorial?
These homework assignments that he gave you, was that actually helpful in the creation of the album?
Yeah, I think he just showed me a lot of music I'd never heard before that was super inspiring to me, and weird silent films, and like it was just kind of like art boot camp a little bit.
It was a college experience you didn't have. I mean, that's like what most people who go to college for the humanities, regardless of what they study, like that's the experience that they have. I mean, everybody takes the film class, everybody takes the music class, everybody gets that, and he was just sort of like jamming that all in at the same time.
Yeah, I think I was really lucky to be surrounded by a lot of people like that, like Ryan and Tony, and then all my friends who are my age and just constantly like consuming music and going to shows. I think I was a part of a really like creative community of people who wanted to learn and do new stuff all the time.
How does watching a silent film help you make a record?
Well, I had this lyric. It's not even on the album. It's a newer song. See, I'm still going through this with him. I was after I recorded the album, I went over there basically for fun, and he showed it's I forget what it even was, but I had some lyric that reminded him of a dance in a silent film. Stuff like that sticks with you. Yeah. Or I remember seeing Safety Last even when I was a kid and being so blown away because there's no special effects. Harold Lloyd is literally scaling a building without
hanging
any
off the
without
clock,
any and it's actually that's right where I grew up in Pasadena. The first ever freeway is right by my house where they're doing that like car chase. I think just everything is inspiring if you like that kind of stuff.
I guess you get the Pixies, the dolly, like the slicing up eyeballs.
Right.
It sounds like it's kind of a continuous process. I mean, you finish the album, but I guess nothing really changes, at least until the album comes out. Are you in a holding pattern right now, does it feel like?
Yeah, although that it's been nice for writing. But yeah, it's definitely nerve-wracking knowing that the album's coming out and my work is done. I just sit here and wait for it to come out.
It's nice for writing from the standpoint of just that you've had some downtime.
Yeah.
Do you feel like people's reaction to the album will have any sort of impact on the music you're making?
I don't know. I think that it's a dangerous game because if people like one song on your first record, then a lot of people try to recreate it, or people who want you to do well will try to get you to recreate it, and then I think I just am kind of in an unchecked creative zone right now, which is really sweet. But that's why it's nice. It's nobody's expecting any specific thing.
That said, there are expectations. That's the crazy thing in all of this is you don't have an album, but NPR has covered you.
Yeah, it's been cool.
The pressure, or I don't even know if you're sort of internalizing it as pressure, it's been mostly a positive for you?
Yeah, it has, because I finished the album, and then all this pressure to have a good album is coming after I'm done with it. So I'm kind of like, it's out of my hands now. And other than that, it just feels nice to have people pay attention.
You've been on such a crash course, and it sounds like you've learned so much in that time period that even though the album hasn't come out, that the album that you would make today would still probably be vastly different than the one that's actually in the can right now.
Right. That's something that I think about all the time. Like if I could go back and re-record, I would have done it a million different times, and I think that's really unhealthy. Like, there is a certain point where you want to edit yourself and you want to go back and say, like, I can do better, but you're always going to be able to do better, and that's what a second record is for. Yeah,
I actually have this conversation a lot with people who are big fans of analog recording.
Mm-hmm.
Like, one of the main criticisms that they have of Pro Tools is the amount of control that it gives you over something.
Yeah, totally.
And the fact that because you can control every aspect of it, that you're basically going to produce that thing into the ground and you're going to obsess. Right. And you need to have some mistakes on the record. And from your standpoint, you've got a snapshot, right? Mm-hmm. Of where you were at the time, and that's probably even better.
Right. It was, and Tony as a producer is somewhere in the middle of like wanting there to be super spontaneous mistakes and then also really meticulous. I really think he did a great job like editing me, basically making sure I didn't over edit, but then also making sure that I did my best work. Although that being said, the Ryan 7-inch was really fun because there's so much stuff I would go back and edit, and he didn't let me. It's on tape.
That's the hardest part when you first really set out to do something creative, is the editing process.
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds like you're already pretty okay with this in the writing part of it, but the idea of killing your darlings, of like throwing out the best part of something or something that you're precious about in order to make a better product overall.
Right.
Do you feel that it's a better record because it might have been a little less spontaneous? I mean, I guess it could have gone two ways. He could have tried to just sort of capture you as you were at the time. But you think because you went through that entire process, something better came out?
Yeah, absolutely. It was like you said, it was very much an ongoing education.
Yeah.
So sometimes he'd send me home and be like, "That's not a real song."
Yeah.
Go write a real song.
What does a not real song sound like?
Like if I was going through some sort of formula where it was, or I didn't write a bridge, he'd be like, "Go write a bridge."
Yeah.
Like
That's funny though. That's funny though, because like that "Go Write a Bridge" is, I mean, in and of itself, kind of a formula, right?
Absolutely, yeah. And so, but I think we were perfect for each other in that way, because sometimes I'd have to be like, Tony, here's a song where there's no bridge, and it's exactly what I wanted to achieve, and we would fight all day, and then whoever ended up winning tended to be right, and a lot of the time it was him. So
that's the thing that you have to shake too when you first start writing songs is breaking out of that very basic formula. I mean, that's almost the downside of knowing too much about it. That's why so many interesting things come out of artists who aren't, who haven't studied it too closely.
Right, totally.
But I suspect that you probably, most people, when they start writing songs, when you start writing at a pretty early age, you were adhering to a very specific formula.
Yeah, totally. It was, I remember being like, oh, I can't just feeling like you have to be like A, B, C.
Yeah.
Like, what is that?
Yeah.
And I don't really believe that anymore, but I also tend to get carried away, and sometimes I'll basically write a Guided by Voices song that's just like an outro to something.
The 20 second.
The 20
There's
second,
nothing wrong with
formula. That. Yeah, totally. I think that there's just like a middle ground. Sometimes it's a piece of a song, and sometimes it's a whole song.
The single, refresh my memory. What's the name of the first?
First one from...
Yeah, I guess it's a song about how shitty 2016 was.
Oh, yeah, Smoke Signals.
Yeah.
Yeah, that basically doesn't even... That formula is like, doesn't do anything for the whole song, and I like that about it. So.
Yeah. You were kind of exercising some demons on that one?
Yeah, it was really... As far as my writing goes, I wrote it really fast.
Yeah.
It was just really easy.
Yeah.
Which was cool.
That's sort of the troubling thing, though, is the singles, like the songs that really stick it with you are the ones that don't take any effort, which is nice, but it's also a little unnerving at the same time. That, it's easy to spend too much time on something, to run something in the ground, and then when you get to those periods, I mean, that's why people run into writer's block, right?
Yeah.
It's because sometimes it just doesn't come like that.
Sure. Yeah, it's it definitely can make you feel kind of out of control, because you can try as hard as you want, and then 4 days later you write something that you haven't been working on at all, and it's done immediately, and everybody likes it more than anything you've been working on. So
do you find that that's the case with the things that people have liked the most, or the ones that have just kind of poured out?
No, I think
It's a mixture.
It's a total mixture, although
Yeah.
it's really frustrating when that does happen, because I think that I work really hard on going back and trying to make songs better.
Yeah.
I'm such a slow writer. Like, it can be a year before I finish something. And it's not like I'm working on it every day, but
as long as you're working on other things at the same time,
totally.
it's not a problem.
But sometimes that happens, and it's super crazy.
You hear those stories, and you always feel like they're like apocryphal, like the Keith Richards one about him like waking up in the middle of the night and getting the Satisfaction riff.
Right, or Townes Van Zandt like writing a song in his sleep.
But I mean, and then you live it.
Right, totally. Yeah, I mean, I have yet to write a song in my sleep, although
yeah,
I'm looking forward to the day.
So where are you at as far as putting together the second one? I mean, you're in the songwriting process right now.
Yeah.
Do you have like full songs written?
Yeah, totally. They'll probably change a trillion times before I end up recording them, but yeah, totally.
Are you eager to record again?
Weirdly, I am, and I thought I would never say that because it's weird. Actually, the weirdest thing about recording to me, this is so embarrassing, but having to wear different clothes every day, because I realized that I never see the same people several times in a row, like for consecutive days, and then when you're recording, you do, and I realized like, oh my god, my habit is to wear the same exact thing for 3 days and then change my clothes. And that I definitely came up with like some pretty interesting outfits. Like I realized my closet is very limited when I've been so far away from it, like when I haven't recorded for a year. So I forget little things like little annoyances like that, and I totally miss it.
How does recording actually rank in your kind of hierarchy of parts of your job that you like?
It's really high up there. I love it. I mean, it can be also my least favorite thing that I've ever done. Like getting to a studio and there's this, sometimes it can be really lethargic.
Yeah.
Like nobody's really had coffee, or if someone's had too much coffee, dude is asleep on the couch. Like nobody really wants to be inside. It's a beautiful day in Los Angeles and you can just vibe on people wrong. And then there are days where it's like super energetic. Everybody's super excited to be recording. People are in and out of the studio, especially Tony's studio. It's like Blake Mills is in there for an hour and then he leaves, and then weirdly, like, you know, T-Bone Burnett stops by to borrow some crazy instrument, and you just feel like such a cool part of the community. Yeah, but I really miss it. I love recording.
But that to me, I think, would be the most difficult part of the process, is trying to channel whatever it is you're trying to channel in a song, whatever it is you were feeling when you wrote the song in that setting, in what can be kind of a sterile setting, and you know, you wake up one day and you're in the recording process, so now it's kind of like doing a job, but you have to put yourself in the place that you were when you wrote that song.
Yeah, he used to turn off the lights when I would track vocals. Tony would turn off the lights.
What difference does that make?
It was great. It was like I wasn't watching people
You're like
watch
astral
me
projecting?
through the glass, basically. Yeah, totally. Like, what is it? Tila Tequila, like it says she's doing on Twitter all the time. Like, she travels through space or something.
Yeah.
But totally, that's what I'm doing. Tony was really, really good at making me feel comfortable and making me feel like when I wrote the song or whatever, because it can feel sterile.
Yeah.
Especially if you're suddenly super aware of the tiny little squeaks that your fingers are making when you play the chords that you've been fine playing for, you know, months. And then suddenly you have to record them and you're like super self-conscious.
I mean, I think that's the part that a lot of people forget, is that like that it is a job. There are those days where you don't want to do it,
where it feels like work. Absolutely.
And more than that, I mean, the thing that you're putting on record that's the thing, that's the object, that's going to be people's definitive version of that song.
Totally. It's really scary to do that. Yeah.
Do you feel like the songs the second time around are going to be dramatically different given how your life experience has changed over the past couple of years?
As far as what I'm writing now, I don't think so. I think I have a really similar style. I think I just tend to write in the same style about a lot of different things.
Yeah.
So I'm sure it's definitely different subject matter for sure, but I think my style is at least the same for now. So.
Yeah. The fact that maybe you're not going to have 5 or 10 years to amass a collection of songs.
Right.
I mean, the fact that you've got some real world constraints, do you think that's going to be a net positive?
I think so. Like I said, with touring, weirdly makes me write more, and maybe not having very much time to record and write a second album will make me focus on it even harder, and like maybe the rules or the freedom or whatever that quote is.
Are the songs still evolving? I mean, that's kind of the Bob Dylan thing, right? Of like going to see him and having them never be the same.
Yeah. Weirdly, the first time I do that all the time, like I'll change melodies or small lyrics, and Connor Oberst I know that he's just actually forgetting what the lyrics actually were.
Yeah.
But sometimes he'll make something up that's like so cool. Yeah. And it's really similar to what it used to be, but it means something completely different, or it means something slightly adjacent. And then touring with Julian Baker, everybody was screaming the words to her record, but she found melodies for songs that everybody knew that were somehow like adding to it instead of changing it in a weird way. Like it was really cool to see it all grow, even though she just recorded the record and she was touring on that record every night. It would be something different, and then you would see what she ended up liking because she would do it again, and she wouldn't do other stuff, and then it would be like something new, and it would just kind of grow and change, and it was really cool to watch.
The flip side of that is when you wrote something 5 years ago or 10 years ago, and you're still able to find something in it that you can relate to, then you've probably written something good.
Sure. Yeah, I think, but it's easy to zone out on stage too, but sometimes I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot how like emotional I was when I wrote this song.
Yeah. So you're not those 5-year-old songs, you still feel good about them?
Yeah, but it's definitely easy to check out of them as well, and start thinking about like that you need to do your laundry because you haven't in 2 weeks and you're on tour, and then sometimes you're really in it, and I don't think that one is good or bad. Sometimes it's nice to be distracted and not nervous on stage.
There you go, that's Phoebe Bridgers. Really, really enjoyed that conversation, and I actually was not familiar with her work when I was approached to do the interview, but I listened to her new single, Motion Sickness, and was really into it. I just immediately liked the song, which is a very rare thing for me, a new artist. So sat down with her, and I'm glad I did. Those of you who listen to the show with any regularity probably know that we tend to interview artists who have been doing this for decades now, so it was nice to get somebody who's really just starting out in the business. Her new album is due out on the 22nd. It's called Stranger in the Alps, so check that out, and check out this single, Motion Sickness. It's on Spotify, and there's a fun video on YouTube as well. Thanks so much to her for taking the time to do that. Thanks to Amanda at Chromatic for setting up the conversation and introducing me to Phoebe's work. I have recommended her to many... Amanda's great too, but I have recommended Phoebe's work to many people subsequently. Thanks to you guys, as always, for listening to the show. If you do like the program, please consider supporting us on Patreon. You can rate us on iTunes or wherever it is you get your podcasts. Like us on Facebook. Follow us on Tumblr. That's rylcast.tumblr.com. That is the first and best place to get all of your RIYL-related information. If you got any feedback, send us an email. That's rylcast@gmail.com. And I think that's about all I got for this week, so stick around because we'll be back just about this time next week with another episode of RIYL.